Britain in the 1980s was no place for fragile machines. The roads were brutal, the weather was unforgiving, and the demands placed on these cars were absolutely relentless. Real toughness wasn't claimed in advertisements, it was earned on motorways, in quarries, across moorlands, and through decades of punishment. Some of these cars carried millions of miles without complaint. Others endured conditions that would destroy modern vehicles in months. And the car sitting at number 1 on this list didn't just survive, it rewrote the definition of automotive endurance. Stay close right now, because this list only gets tougher from here. Number 10. Ford Escort Mk3. The Ford Escort Mk3, launched in 1980, this front-wheel drive hatchback quietly became one of Britain's most depended upon machines. It may not look tough, but the numbers don't lie. Millions of Escorts served as company fleet cars, family workhorses, and small business vehicles across the United Kingdom throughout the decade. The 1.3 and 1.6 CVH engines earned a reputation for surviving neglect that would have killed lesser power plants. But here's where it proves itself. Ford's engineering team designed the Escort suspension and subframe for British road realities, potholes, heavy loads, and relentless daily mileage. Fleet managers in the early 1980s chose the Escort repeatedly because replacement parts were affordable and workshops understood it inside out. Hundreds of thousands of units crossed the 100,000-mile mark without major mechanical failure. Most people overlooked just how hard this car worked. Britain ran on the Escort, and the Escort simply never blinked. Number 9. Vauxhall Cavalier MK2. The Vauxhall Cavalier MK2, when it arrived in 1981, Britain's commercial fleet market had found a new favorite, and it wasn't hard to understand why. But here's where things get serious. The Cavalier's durability statistics were extraordinary for a mass-market saloon of its era. Insurance companies, government departments, and major corporations ordered it in bulk because it delivered consistent reliability mile after mile. The 1.6 and 1.8-liter engines were straightforward, over-engineered for their output level, and remarkably tolerant of sustained high mileage. What really made this car tough was the drivetrain's robustness. Many Cavaliers returned over 150,000 miles in fleet service before requiring significant mechanical work. And one detail rarely mentioned today, the Cavalier's bodyshell rigidity was significantly better than most competitors at its price point, meaning fewer rattles and fewer structural problems over years of genuinely hard daily use. This was endurance built into every specification. Number 8. Austin Metro. The Austin Metro, launched in 1980 as the replacement for the legendary Mini, it faced enormous pressure from day one. And this is where things get interesting. The Metro's Hydrogas suspension system, which evolved from the Mini's interconnected design philosophy, gave it a ride quality and structural compliance that allowed the car to absorb punishing road surfaces without transferring stress to the body shell. Small in stature but surprisingly tough in engineering, the Metro served millions of British families as their primary daily transport throughout the decade. It powered through winters on narrow country roads, survived shopping centre car parks, and took on urban commuting week after week. Most people overlook the fact that the Metro's A-Series engine had already proven its durability over 2 decades in the Mini. Would this survive today? Many still do, and that says everything. Its endurance credentials are stronger than its reputation suggests. Number 7. Triumph Acclaim. The Triumph Acclaim, launched in 1981 as the result of British Leyland's partnership with Honda, the Acclaim arrived carrying 2 reputations, one for hope, one for suspicion. But here's where it proves itself. Underneath its unremarkable body sat Honda's proven Civic drivetrain, an engine and transmission combination already respected globally for reliability under demanding conditions. British buyers who needed a dependable daily car and couldn't afford German engineering found that the Acclaim delivered exactly what it promised. The 1.3-litre Honda-sourced engine proved almost indestructible in regular use, and the gearbox handled high mileage with a composure that British Leyland's own mechanicals had rarely managed. This is rarely mentioned today. Fleet buyers and private owners regularly returned 100,000-mile examples that required little more than routine servicing. The Acclaim changed how Britain thought about volume car reliability. And that important shift was earned mile by mile on ordinary British roads. Number 6. Ford Sierra. The Ford Sierra, when it replaced the Cortina in 1982, the Sierra's aerodynamic jellyfish styling divided Britain instantly. But here's where things get serious. The Sierra's structural engineering was a significant step forward in build quality from its predecessor. The rear-wheel drive layout, paired with Ford's proven SOHC engines, created a drivetrain combination that proved enormously reliable under sustained motorway use. Police forces across England adopted the Sierra in large numbers, running high-specification 2.0-litre versions on extended patrol duties that covered extraordinary annual mileages. What really made this car tough was its suspension geometry. The independent rear setup absorbed road punishment in a way that kept the car composed and structurally sound across hundreds of thousands of miles. Fleet managers who doubted it quickly reversed their position when service records came back consistently positive. Or does another car deserve more credit? On endurance alone, the Sierra held its own. Number 5. Jaguar XJ6. The Jaguar XJ6, the XJ40 generation, launched in 1986 after years of development, represented Jaguar's most ambitious engineering project in decades. But here's where it proves itself. Despite early criticisms of electrical complexity, the XJ40's body structure and mechanical core were built to a standard most rivals couldn't match. The 2.9 and 3.6-litre straight-six engines were engineered for longevity, with over-square dimensions and conservative internal tolerances designed to sustain high-mileage performance across hundreds of thousands of miles. And this is where things get serious. Chauffeur companies and executive car fleets across Britain ran XJ40s to mileages that stunned competitors. The bodyshell's structural rigidity was exceptional, absorbing motorway punishment without the scuttle shake that afflicted lesser saloons. What really made this Jaguar tough was that behind the wood and leather interior sat engineering with genuine durability ambition. This wasn't just a luxury car. It was truly built to last. Number 4. Rover SD1. The Rover SD1, introduced in 1976, the SD1 dominated British policing and executive transport throughout the 1980s. And this is where things get serious. The SD1's combination of a lightweight hatchback body and a powerful BIC-derived V8 engine created something unexpected, a saloon with real endurance credentials. British police forces running the V8 version found that the engine was almost impossible to wear out under sustained high-speed pursuit duty. What really made this car tough was the Rover V8's aluminium construction. It kept weight down while delivering extraordinary mechanical longevity. Traffic units across the Midlands and Northern England covered astonishing annual mileages in SD1s without major drivetrain failure. Most people overlook that the SD1 won European Car of the Year in 1977, but what mattered more was its working life. Britain's harsh roads proved its toughness every single day for many years, and the SD1 never backed down. Number 3. London Taxi FX4. The London Taxi FX4. Few vehicles in automotive history have faced working conditions as demanding as the London Black Cab. Launched in 1958 and refined continuously through the 1980s, the FX4 became one of the most thoroughly proven urban endurance machines ever built. And this is where things get serious. A typical London taxi of the 1980s covered between 50,000 and 70,000 miles every year, operating across all weather conditions, 24 hours a day. The diesel engine at its heart, supplied by Perkins and later Land Rover, was tuned specifically for low-speed urban durability rather than performance. What really made this car tough was its engineered conservatism, every component chosen for longevity over cost savings. The turning circle, legendary at 25 feet, was achieved through a chassis design with structural integrity that lasted decades. Britain's most grueling roads were these streets. And the FX4 conquered every last one. Number 2. Range Rover Classic. The Range Rover Classic, launched in 1970, but utterly dominant throughout the 1980s, the Range Rover redefined what a four-wheel drive vehicle could be. But here's where it proves itself. This wasn't just a luxury off-roader positioned for country estates. Farmers, army officers, Wildlife services, and emergency teams all relied on the Range Rover for one core reason: it worked in conditions where nothing else would. The coil spring suspension, revolutionary at its launch, gave it cross-axle articulation that allowed the car to traverse terrain most vehicles couldn't even approach. What really made this machine tough was the Rover V8's torque delivery under extreme axle loads. It pulled through mud, across streams, and over rocks without mechanical complaint. And this is where things get serious. Range Rovers used by Scottish mountain rescue teams regularly returned six-figure mileages working in brutal highland conditions. This is toughness proven beyond any reasonable argument. Number 1. Land Rover Defender 110. The Land Rover Defender 110. When Solihull launched the coil-sprung 110 in 1983, it created the definitive standard for automotive toughness. And this is where everything changes. No other British car of the 1980s was deployed across as many hostile environments, trusted by as many military units, or proven across as many continents simultaneously. The Defender's ladder frame chassis was engineered with rigidity that absorbed extreme off-road forces while remaining repairable anywhere with basic tools. Its permanent four-wheel drive system with a locking center differential gave it terrain capability that competitors simply couldn't match. What really made this machine the toughest British car of the decade was its total indifference to conditions. Desert heat, Arctic cold, jungle humidity, Scottish Highland winters, it endured all of them without compromise. This was never just an argument. This was a proven fact. The Defender is the toughest British car ever made. Toughness in the 1980s wasn't marketed. It was proven, on motorways, in blizzards, across moorlands, and through millions of miles. Every car on this list earned its place through performance under pressure, not reputation. And that raises a question worth sitting with: would cars today carry that same legacy in 50 years? The machines that endured tell us something about the people who built them and the country that needed them. If this list really moved you, leave your pick in the comments below. And if you haven't seen our other videos, they're waiting for you right now.